Churches try so many different ways of connecting or trying to connect to the wider mission of God. You know, we see denominations right the way through the spectrum, all the way through to independent churches. And in the middle of that, you've got something called network, which is kind of probably the closest to what we see in the New Testament, and therefore probably the most dangerous as well, because while it's close to the truth, it does miss the pattern that God gives in Scripture in a number of areas. So while most of these things have elements of truth in them, denominations all the way through to independence, there are aspects that we see in the churches. Ultimately, they don't, each one in itself doesn't properly represent what we read about when we look at our Bibles and how these things should work. And obviously anything that's corrupted or misses the mark needs to be tweaked and worked so that it can align itself properly with the revelation that God gives in the New Testament about how the churches should work. The word that the Bible gives for how we partner together is really partnership. We see that in Philippians 1:5, in 2 Corinthians 8, verse 23. This is the language used in the Bible about how individual independent churches work together within the bigger picture. And one of the things I say is, and I'm convinced about, is that we can't just create new words and new formulas of trying to work this thing out. We need to use Bible words and try and get as close as we can to Bible concepts to make sure that we get this thing right. So let's look at this concept of what does partnership mean? What is it in the New Testament? The churches in the New Testament really, as much as they were in different locations, they didn't see themselves as individual autonomous communities, but they really saw themselves as a glorious part of a bigger community that stretched beyond their local church into a wider world. And with it came mutual responsibilities and care for the churches that they were joined to within a partnership that God had given them in the gospel. The word partnership, if you look at what it really means what is shared or what is in common. And we get this concept of obviously then community out of that. So churches then that are in partnership with one another obviously have a common area of love and a common area of service. And so we see the churches working within a bigger sphere than their own local area that they're in, out of a deep love for the big picture of what God is doing in the nations. The word partnership in the Bible really is the word koinonia in the Greek. And it really has a number of different ways that the Bible uses it, which are quite telling when it tells how the churches should partner with one another outside of their local contexts. The first is obviously our koinonia, or our unity with Christ, which is in 1 Corinthians 1:9. We have a unity with Jesus. The word the Bible gives is partnership or koinonia. We also find a unity within the local church. In Acts 2:42, we see they devoted themselves to the koinonia, to the local fellowship. And so we do see that there is a local aspect to community or unity. But then we also see that same word used within an apostolic field. Churches are in koinonia or in partnership or in unity. In 2 Corinthians 10:13-16, in Philippians 1:5, in 1 John 1:3, we really see this word koinonia used in terms of how a local church partners within the churches around us. So unity is a far greater thing than a loose federation or a network of churches that kind of come together to do things together on the odd occasion. There's a far deeper unity that really should reflect something of how our relationship is with Jesus, or even our relationship within the local church. So we believe God's way is partnership, deeper than a network, but not as controlling or as man-made as a denomination.